Well, for a start, the United States will step up aid, appoint an ambassador, and now allow select officials to visit. But Secretary of State Hillary Clinton stressing today that the U.S. will move cautiously. She says Myanmar still has a long way to go. For his take on how the U.S. move and whether Myanmar is ready for a bigger role in the global economy, I spoke earlier with Leon Pereira. He is a group managing director at Spire Research and Consulting. And I started by asking whether he felt the U.S. was moving too fast to ease those sanctions.
Well, I don't think the U.S. has moved too far, too fast, Timothy. The announcement from Hillary Clinton today marked the start of a process. She announced the gradual easing in the future of financial services exports, the coming easing of FDI. I think easing of sanctions against imports from Myanmar are going to come much further down the line. So I don't think this is a rush to change. It's not an overnight change. It's really the start of a process, and quite rightly so. The U.S. will need to calibrate this sanctions easing with the pace of change. Obviously, the event that triggered all this was Aung San Suu Kyi's election in the by-election, so that was really the catalyst. The U.S. has to make sure that the easing keeps pace with the institutionalization of changes in Myanmar. So it can't just be some transient changes. There have got to be changes to the constitution, the structure of parliament, the balance of power between civilian and military, and so on.
All right, Leon, what areas do you think are ripe for easing of investment sanctions?
Well, I think the main area is no doubt infrastructure. And by infrastructure here, we're talking about roads, ports, airports, power generation, water treatment. So this is really where Myanmar is deficient. It has infrastructure that is aging, that is substandard, that is not world-class. And ironically, they really need to bring investment in that area in order to get more FDI. They need to make sure there's good quality of electricity, water supply, and so on. So I think this will probably be the area that Western governments want to ensure that their companies can get a slice of the contracts. And this is where they have been losing out, I think, to companies from China, to a lesser extent companies from Thailand and India. So I think infrastructure will be the first big area we'll see easing of sanctions for FDI. The second big area is probably going to be oil and gas, energy. I think oil prices are high and will be increasing. Myanmar is an area which still has untapped potential for oil and gas exploration and production, particularly offshore.
Leon, what is the investment climate really like in Myanmar?
Well, there's no doubt that it is still quite deficient, quite poor. I think one positive step recently was the managed float of the currency, the dual exchange rate between the government fixed exchange rate and the black market rate. I think that was a huge problem for foreign investors, so that's on the way to resolving itself. But the rest of the investment climate is still pretty rickety. I think the regulatory frameworks are not completely there. Corruption remains an issue. Infrastructure and human resources are lacking, and so on. So I think we're still some ways away, and really they will need to bring in foreign investors to build and operate infrastructure in order to make the investment climate better for more investors to come in.